Hey Cloud Guardians! Welcome back to Nimbus Nebula, where cloud innovation meets unbreakable security. I'm Cloud Architect Pro, and today we're diving into Preventive Controls in AWS Control Tower. This is part 5 of the series, where we'll focus on enforcing encryption compliance for S3 buckets to keep your data secure and ensure it meets essential standards like PCI DSS. Ready to fortify your environment? Let's get started. Preventive controls act as the vigilant protectors of your AWS environment, proactively blocking non-compliant actions, like attempts to disable encryption on S3 buckets. These controls ensure your policies are enforced before any violations can happen. At the heart of these protections are service control policies, SCPs, which establish organization-wide rules. Think of SCPs as your safety rails, preventing misconfigurations across all accounts within an organizational unit, OU. In this session, you'll learn to enable a preventive control to lock encryption configurations for S3 buckets. Validate its enforcement using AWS Organizations and CloudTrail. Test its behavior against non-compliant changes and disable the control and clean up resources. Before we start, make sure you've got Control Tower Landing Zone, updated to version 3.0 or later. Sandbox OU setup and includes at least one test account. Let's begin by creating an S3 bucket in the Sandbox account, specifically in Test Account 1. Log into your Sandbox account through the AWS Access Portal. Go to the S3 console and create a new bucket using the default settings. In this example, I will name my bucket Nimbus Nebula. By default, Amazon S3 applies server-side encryption, SSE S3, to the bucket. This lab demonstrates how preventive controls ensure that this encryption configuration remains unchanged. Click Create Bucket to complete the process. Locate the control. From the Control Tower Management account, open the Control Tower dashboard and navigate to the Controls Library section. Select Categories. Choose the control objectives and then select Encrypt Data at Rest. In the Find Controls search box, select Service, then set the filter to Equals and choose Amazon S3. There are several controls available to help achieve this requirement. For this lab, focus on those with a preventive behavior. In the Find Controls search box, choose Behavior. Set it to Equals and select Preventive. Locate the preventive control and click on it. Next, go to the Artifacts tab and open the Service Control Policy, SCP artifact. Here, you can see the underlying policy that drives the control. This policy will deny the action S3, put encryption configuration on all resources within accounts under the organizational unit, OU, where the control is enabled, gr_audit_bucket_encryption_enabled, disallowing changes to the encryption configuration for Amazon S3 buckets. Click the control name to open its details. In the Details pane, you'll find a summary of the control, including the framework it is associated with, the control objective it implements, and the service it applies to. Since this control has a preventive behavior, its implementation is listed as a Service Control Policy, SCP. Note the SID, gr_audit_bucket_encryption_enabled, which will be used to validate the control in the next sections. Close the SCP window to return to the control details page. To enable the control, click the Enable Control button at the top right of the screen. Select the radio button next to the Sandbox OU and click Enable Control on OU. Go to the OUS Enabled tab. Once the control is enabled, its status will show as enabled next to the relevant OU, AWS gr_audit_bucket_encryption_enabled, artifacts, service control policy, SCP. Navigate to the Organizations section of AWS Control Tower. Open the Sandbox OU. Scroll down to the Controls section and paste the name of the control you enabled earlier into the search box. AWS gr_audit_bucket_encryption_enabled. You will notice that the state for the current OU shows as enabled. In this section of the lab, we will explore how the preventive control operates in detail. Validate the control from AWS organizational perspective. Open the AWS Organizations Service Console. From the list of OUs, select the Sandbox OU and go to the Policies tab. You will see a list of SCPs applied to this OU. Control Tower deploys preventive controls as SCPs with the prefix AWS guardrails. For this lab, there should be one SCP with this prefix AWS guardrails. Select the SCP to view its details. AWS organizations impose limits of 5 SCPs per OU and 5,120 bytes per SCP. Control Tower optimizes and combines preventive controls into as few SCPs as possible. Identify the control. Recall the SID value noted earlier. gr_audit_bucket_, encryption enabled. Use your browser's find function to search for SID. gr_audit_bucket_, encryption enabled. In the SCP details, find the section where the policy denies the action S3. Put encryption configuration on all resources. This matches the control artifact examined earlier. Let's test the control by attempting to modify the encryption configuration of our S3 bucket. To start, go to the AWS Access portal and log in with your Sandbox account credentials. Navigate to the S3 Service Console. Open the S3 console and locate the S3 bucket, Nimbus Nebula, that we created earlier. Open the Properties tab of the bucket and scroll to the default encryption section. Attempt to set the bucket key option to Disable and save the changes. You will encounter an access denied error. This happens because the action S3, put encryption configuration, is blocked by a service control policy, SCP, or other preventive controls, ensuring the encryption settings remain unchanged. Now, let's troubleshoot the access denied error and use CloudTrail to get more insight into what is happening. The error indicates insufficient permissions for the action S3, put encryption configuration. This matches the SCP or preventive control that restricts modifications to bucket encryption. Now let's open CloudTrail in the Sandbox account to investigate the error message and understand what's happening. You might be wondering, why the Sandbox account? The reason is that our S3 bucket, Nimbus Nebula, resides in the Sandbox account, so the relevant API call and error details are logged. Once opened the CloudTrail console, set the lookup attributes to resource name and enter the name of the S3 bucket, Nimbus Nebula, in the search field. Locate and open the event named Put Bucket Encryption. Analyze the event details. Error code. Verify that it states access denied, confirming the permission restriction. Event record. Look for the key event name and confirm the value. Put bucket encryption. Request parameters. Check the bucket key enabled. False parameter, which corresponds to the configuration change you attempted. This process confirms that the preventive control successfully blocked the action S3. Put encryption configuration, ensuring the encryption settings for the bucket remain protected as intended. Disabling the control. Go back to the management account and open the Control Tower Service Console and navigate to the Organization section. Locate and open the Sandbox Organizational Unit, OU. Scroll down to the Controls section and paste the name of the control previously enabled into the search box, AWS gr_audit_bucket_encryption_enabled. You'll notice that the state for the control in the Sandbox OU is marked as enabled. Click on the control name to open the control details. Select the OU's Enabled tab. Choose the radio button next to the Sandbox OU, scroll and click Control Actions and select Disable Control. After a brief period, the control will be removed from the OU, and you will see a verification message at the top of the dashboard confirming the action. Reattempt modifying the S3 bucket encryption settings. Now that the preventive control is disabled, let's try modifying the encryption configuration of the S3 bucket again. Previously, when the control was active, attempting to disable the encryption resulted in an error. With the control now disabled, we expect the operation to complete successfully. Let's log into the Sandbox account. Navigate to the S3 console and locate the bucket Nimbus Nebula. Open the bucket's Properties tab and scroll to the default encryption section. Set the bucket key option to disable and click Save Changes. The operation will complete successfully as the preventive control has been disabled. Congratulations, Cloud Guardian! You've successfully mastered preventive controls and strengthened your cloud security skills. Here's what you accomplished in this lab. Mastered preventive controls to enforce rock-solid security policies. Harnessed AWS Organizations and CloudTrail to ensure compliance with ease. Conquered access. Denied errors by diving deep into permissions and service control policies, SCPs. These steps are essential for building a secure and compliant AWS environment. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay updated with more AWS insights. This is Cloud Architect Pro signing off. Until next time, stay secure and keep innovating.